Hello everyone and welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's Nick and this is my daily ramble. As always, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, help us push to that 10k that we're hoping to get to before Christmas. It's free to do it. Drop a like on the video. It does really help us. And before we go anywhere, I've got to let you know because the offer ends the 5th of December and that is the 25% off deal with our sponsor, our channel sponsor, the Kent and Sussex Tea and Coffee Company. If you use the discount code Claret25, go to the link in our description. It will take you to the website. It's a great place. We wouldn't endorse anyone that we didn't believe in. They're West Ham fans as well. Go and give them a look. And also, I'll be getting loads of requests about where I got that picture from. And it's from canningtownlen.com. So head over there. Obviously, he does a lot more than that. He's got tons of art on there to choose from, West Ham related and mostly West Ham related. But there's some other bits on there as well. Well worth checking out. Right, so what we're going to talk about today then. I'm gonna talk about some. I'm not going to call it news, but there's another rumour that's come out of the club that's not really different to what we've heard before, but again it kind of reinforces a point that people push back on. Okay, not good news either, as you can imagine, in relation to the players and the way that they feel about David Moyes. Blah 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 blah. But I'm going to talk about that later. Before we get into that, we're going to talk about the quickly just my thoughts. You know, now the dust has settled on that game the other day. You know, it was 3 points. It was, you know, and you've got to be pleased with that, especially when you play that badly. You've especially got to be pleased with 3 points when you've played so poorly as we did there. You know, we really got away with one. What are you doing? Just got a dog chewing in the background. Sorry about that. I hope you can't hear it because it sounds disgusting. Yeah, and the reason why I kind of get so frustrated with it now look, I think I have got to try and calm myself down because I have accepted, unless some miracle happens and David Moyes goes and wins a trophy or something like that, he's not going to be here next year. I think even then it's going to be difficult for him to stay on because, like I say, I have been told that decisions have been made behind the scenes. So. And that's why we've got people committing. That's why that's what they're using to try and sort of convince other players to sign contracts and, you know, youth players to stay here because the manager that's going to be coming in has got a proven track record with bringing youth through. So I do believe that entirely in my head. He's not going to be here at the end of the year, but it's just I kind of did try to coach myself a little bit to make myself a little bit more tolerant of this. But that Burnley game the other day really. It was like nothing I've ever seen with a group of players like this. Yeah, we've seen bad football over the years. We have seen bad football, but it was awful. And what I've done is I've watched the game back, punished myself even more. Watched it back yesterday, and I've also gone and looked into the stats as well. And we said before the game, we said that, and David Moyes knows this. He knows it full well. We said that when you play James Ward-Prowse and Souček in the middle of the park, you give up control of the game. You do. Now, it's very difficult to have a go at either player for this because it isn't their fault. They're not really being used for anything other than their specialist skill sets, which are thriving this year. So it's difficult to have a go at them individually because they're kind of doing their job. They're doing it to the best of their ability. But David Moyes knows that we've got no progression through the middle in central midfield with those two there. He kind of knows that we've got nothing to stop the team, the opposing team coming straight back at us as well. And you can kind of see that from the stats. You can see that by design, what we were doing in that game, Areola was slowing distribution, as he's learned to do, as he's kind of been in the team more this season. Well, he is a number one, but he doesn't sort of get rid of the ball as quickly as he once did. He just doesn't do that anymore. Now he bounces the ball, he waits. And typically what we do is the ball goes out straight to Aguero if possible. If not, if he's occupied, it'll go to Zuma. A couple of little sideways passes. The ball finds its way to Aguero. He takes a few strides forwards and typically he just launches the ball up. It's long ball, what we played against Burnley. And we've seen that quite a lot. And he aims for either Souček or the channels for Kudus. Now, Kudus, as we know, was pretty much our only kind of outlet and threat on the deck in that game. So Burnley did a really good job in occupying him. So it doesn't matter how good the ball is from Aguero, it's going to be very difficult to pick him out in a crowd of 6 foot tall guys. It isn't going to happen. So the fact that that we kept on flogging that same horse over and over again. It was literally from Areola out to him, and the success rate of the passes. I think there was 22 or 23 long balls. 7 of them found a West Ham player. That's an amazing failure rate, and the fact that we just kept on doing the same thing. So it's like David Moyes is well aware. He knows that we've got nothing in the middle. He knows this, but he just wanted people to stay zonal. He wanted them to stay in their positions to try and give us a bit of a shield and rely on the fact that Burnley are a little bit leaky at the back. They play a bit expansive, so they leave gaps, and to just try and get the ball over the top of them and try and hit them on the channels. That was it. That was a limit of his tactic in that game. And until the last 5 minutes, it failed absolutely miserably. It really, really did. And this is against poor opposition as well. You know, the way that we played against Burnley, if we play like that badly against any team that we've got coming up, you know, the next 6 or 7 Premier League games, we're going to get hurt and hurt badly. We are. You know, he's going to have to make some changes. He's got to. Like I said, you can't criticise James Ward-Prowse and Souček individually. I'm kind of learning that now. I accept it. I mean, Souček's been unbelievable. He's won us our last 2 games. Pretty much, if you take those goals away, his impact is nothing. But when you're winning games for your team, you can't criticise a guy. He's banging them in at the moment. You know, and they're not just all nothing goals. I mean, that was a brilliant goal that he scored the other day. So he's very reliable when you need him at that part of the game. He is. And James Ward-Prowse, if he's not pulling worldies out with his set pieces while he's playing in this position, which is like a more deeper midfield role, he may as well not be on the pitch, but he will always be on the pitch because David Moyes insists on that, because he sees that as kind of our main route to scoring goals, you know, which is mad when you look at the volume of talent that we've got in our team. Paqueta, rightly so, got a lot of criticism the other day as well, but as I said, we weren't set up in any way to control that game, to have the ball. It was long ball football. That was the idea. That was the game. There was no patterns of play. There was nothing. It was really basic. And I hate to say it, Sunday League tactics against a team. And I said it on my review. The guy had inferior players to work with, but you can see the work that they do on the training pitch. You physically can see it with your own eyes. They've got no cutting edge in the final third, but that's got nothing to do with coaching. That's all to do with personnel. And to have players like Paqueta, who did get pelters for a poor performance, he looked like he couldn't be asked. Whenever he's got the ball, Paqueta won't just hoof it. So when he holds onto the ball for too long, typically that's because there isn't any passing options there. That's generally the case. He's a clever player. He wants to keep the ball. We've got a lot of players that will just get rid of it. For instance, Soufal doesn't even look where he's kicking it. He just kicks it down the line. He just gets it up the line. But Paqueta won't. He needs to have options. And when you look at any other team, if you look at the way that Burnley played, at any one time, when someone's on the ball in the middle of the park, they've got 2 options. Well, for West Ham, that's not the case. You almost need players to be able to get the ball. And I think Paqueta's got licence to do this. And to basically hold it up, fight off, sorry about the wobbling, Bubbles. Just getting abused by the dogs here. She's got an itch. To hold the ball up in tight areas, carry the ball forward, and literally do it all themselves. And they're not always going to be able to do it. And he got caught out a few times. He almost cost us a goal. But it's just the way that we play is such a waste. It's a waste of talent. And a lot of people say, look, David Moyes is a victim of his own success, blah, 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 blah. You may well be right. He is. He did very well in the first 2 seasons. I'm excluding the Cup last year because that was a great thing, but that's separate. I think the way you judge a Premier League manager is in the Premier League. It's the toughest competition. You know, that's kind of, you spend Premier League money, you should be competing in the Premier League. It was great to win that cup, but let's face it, all that did was save his job. He knew he had to do something in that competition. And he did, and it was great for us. But judging him on the Premier League, it's been awful. And he's tactically regressed over time. The more money he spent, it's got worse. So saying he's a victim of his own success is one thing, but you've got even the guys that kind of defend him, he's got to live up to the expectations, to the bar that he rose quite early in his tenure with West Ham, and he hasn't done that. It's like he's regressed tactically. With every great player that we get in, we seem to play worse football. It's bizarre. If you go back to the early seasons, some of the football that we played was okay. It was fine. You know, it was exciting at times. It was good counter-attacking football, particularly when Lingard came in. But it's just a waste the way that we're playing now. So what I'm saying is David Moyes could help himself out if he weren't so stubborn. But it's just a complete blind refusal to do so. And we'll see what he does in the games that are coming up. We'll see how he sets out. But I anticipate more of the same. I anticipate we'll play the same style of football. We will lose plenty of games in the next 8 to 9. You've got to hope that we win on Thursday. I mean, we need to win on Thursday. But thinking that Freiburg will probably beat Olympiacos, we will still need a win in the game against Freiburg as well at home. So there's no easy games coming up. They're all important. And I just wish the guy wouldn't be so stubborn. And playing Danny Ings in that system, in the way that he did, it exposed all of his flaws that we all complain about. It's not just a favouritism to a player. It's beyond that. Because this guy's proven time and time and time again, he cannot do that job. And he just didn't want to play Mabama. There's a lot of people now that were saying, no, it was all part of the plan, you know, to leave Danny Ings on the field. No, it was never part of the plan to go 1-0 down to Burnley. Should have been 2-0, lose control of the game. No, it wasn't. He puts him on the pitch because he wants him to score, and I understand that. But you've got better options, and he just exposes his flaws on a regular basis. And at present, what's happening is these players are digging him out of trouble. They are, and they always have done. You know, when it's come to it, and this pushes back on the whole, you know, the players are not happy with him. But look, at the end of the day, people say that the minute that the players pull something out the bag like they did the other day, they go, oh, look, they're playing for the manager. They're not. Any professional worth their salt will play for the fans that are at that stadium. They play for the badge. That's what they do. They've got their own standards. They don't want to lose games. They don't want to. So I don't buy that at all. We're going to talk about the again, you know, the information that we've had through in terms of the latest fallout in a little bit, and you can make your own judgments on that. Like I say, very similar to what we heard last year, you know, in the month leading up to the final where it was all going bandy. But it's just, like I say, it's incredibly frustrating. He could so easily set us up to take teams apart. I mean, he showed in the last 30 minutes that we had the personnel, and we did. If we'd have set up at the start of the game like we did in that last 30 minutes, we would have blown Burnley away. They wouldn't have had a chance, a hope in hell's chance. And we would have all seen a much more palatable game of football. It wouldn't have been walking on eggshells. It wouldn't have been a gamble, because that was luck. It was pure luck. 2 great goals, but it was luck that we managed to get it over the line like that. To get a point, to get 3 points, it would have been lucky just to get 1. We were that poor in that game. So I remain concerned for the rest of this season, because everyone's right what they're saying. They're saying, look, we're in the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup. We're currently 9th in the league. We're top of our Europa League group. Why are you complaining? I'm complaining because I can see it all going down the toilet. I can. A lot of the results that we've got this year, 9 of our 20 points that we've earned this year have been against the 3 teams that have just come up. We always beat the shit teams. Now, I know that people say we ain't a flaky West Ham no more. We always win the games that we should. Well, yeah, we do. He doesn't take any risks ever. So when you play the way that David Moyes plays in every game, you should beat these lower teams. And that's good. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But he deploys the same scare tactics against the big teams as well, which is why he's got such a poor win ratio against them. So poor. Basically, everything about David Moyes is predictable. We have a better team than Burnley, so we will go and beat them. We have a better team than Sheffield United, we will go and beat them. You know, but then when it comes to teams in and around us, that's when you start getting question marks. And talking about the way that we play, where people say, look, the way that we play, what would you rather do? Would you rather play well, which I don't get, or play well and lose, or play badly and win? Well, for a start, if you play well, you should, as a rule, win more than you lose. If you lose, then you haven't played well. If you're playing a style of football that you're not good enough to play, then you haven't played well. You've been naive. We've got personnel to play in a different way. We've got a top 6 to top 8 group of players. We have. Yes, we've still got gaps in the team, but on the whole, we've got quite a few top-class to world-class players in our team. And if you look at all the teams above us in the division, and most of them below us as well, nobody plays this way. Nobody else plays this way. You know, you're never ever going to bore your way to success in the Premier League. So it's almost like we've accepted bottoming out and stability and mediocrity in the middle, which is probably what you would get long term with David Moyes. Is boring football, but stability. Let's say that last year was a bit of an anomaly, and we're not going to get the relegation battles every year. Let's assume that. On the whole, I would imagine you'd finish between, I don't know, 9th and 14th with David Moyes in a typical season, with a David Moyes team playing the David Moyes way, and hopefully you would get some cup runs. But surely I certainly will never be happy with this week in and week out. I really won't. It fucking irritates me. Like I've already said, when you got players like that, it's a complete waste. It's a waste, and it's a shame to kind of accept it. But I understand. Look, as fans, there's nothing we can do. Whether you're Moyes in or you're Moyes out, there's nothing that I can do to change the situation. There's nothing anyone can do. The people that want him in can't make the board give him a 3-year contract. I can't make them get rid of him, and I don't think that they will. I think he's going to be here until the end of the season. I can't see them, even if he has a terrible run throughout December and January. I think he is here. So I have got to try and learn in some way to enjoy the football a little bit, or be objective, or try and watch football in a different way, and accept the fact that it's not going to be entertainment, and just focus on the 3 points, because that's all we're going to get. At best, we're going to get a win. The football is never going to be easy to watch. I've got to try and somehow accept it, because it is getting in the way of my ability to enjoy watching my team. I expect more. I'm not getting it, and it's frustrating me to the point where I'm not enjoying watching the team play anymore. I'm not. So somehow I've got to try and change my perspective on what I'm watching, really lower my expectations on the quality of football, not expect anything at all, and just be grateful if we can get the win like we did against Burnley. I think that might be the strategy. I don't know whether I could successfully do that. I don't, because I do get wound up before, sort of during a game. I get frustrated, but hopefully I can do it for my own sanity more than anything else. Right, now, moving on to the news that we was given. Right, there are weekly players' meals. They go out, typically once a week for a meal, and it's just a players' thing. They go out with each other, have a bit of a debrief. And we had some information from there was a lot of emotion at the players' meal this week. It was either last night or the night before, and it's from a very, very good source. And people like Pablo Fornals was apparently in tears. I don't know whether they was drinking at the players' meal. I wouldn't imagine they were. Probably having one glass of wine with their meal, but. He was in tears. We know Pablo's an emotional guy because we've seen it when he's gone to come on the pitch. Apparently, Lucas Paqueta was absolutely raging. He was fuming. The guy that he was speaking to in his kind of broken English, because he's not the best English speaker, apparently, still not speaking that clear. The guy said to him, "I've heard enough. Please stop." But basically, let's just say the rumours that Paqueta calls Moyes daddy and looks at him as a father figure couldn't be further from the truth. He doesn't like many of the players, even some players that I would be surprised with. Now, I know we had the rumour that Souček wasn't going to sign a new contract because he didn't like the style of football, and he went and signed a contract. But the fact of the matter is, the reason that he did that was because nobody else was interested in him. So he ended up taking a lower offer from us in the end. We allowed him and his agent to go out and try and find another club. They couldn't find one. So in the end, he signed a new contract. That's how Souček did sign. But apparently even Souček and Soufal are not pleased with the way that we're playing. They would rather play in a more attacking way. And it's no coincidence that Souček's been set free a little bit this year. He's almost been given a free rein. And I think that was probably part of the deal to sort of appease him, to get him to sign, to get him to stay. And thus far it's worked for us to a degree because he's scoring goals at the detriment to the rest of our game, the way that we're playing. But from a personal perspective, Souček is scoring goals and he's doing well. He's scoring important goals as well. But yeah, the rumour is it was Paqueta in particular was not a happy bunny. He wasn't, And when you think about it, it's kind of, and like I say, I've had information like this probably 3 or 4 times, going up to 2 months to 3 months before the end of the season. Brighton away, that was a big one where it all kicked off in in the changing room after Brighton away, and then we had more and more stories from similar sources afterwards clarifying the same thing. Now, look, you would always expect that players that are not in the team and not being played to be unhappy. So, like Fornals, you could probably accept that, yeah? You're always going to have that, I imagine, in a big group of players where they're not being played. They're not going to be happy. But to hear that there's other players that are actually in this team, that in the team, and you would say Moyes' preferred players are doing the same thing is mind blowing, to be honest. So what I did was, because this source was Gary's source, so I didn't get this information. So what I did was I went and checked with my guy that I speak to about these things, and what he said was he said he couldn't clarify on that event. He said because obviously it's a players' dinner. He said there was no senior representatives there. He said that he was aware of. He said, but nothing that you're telling me is a surprise. He said there's been discontent in that group for a long, long time. He said as a group they're very close. He said they are very close. They all like each other. He said it's almost. He said they're probably as close a knit bunch as what you could hope to get in terms of players. But he said we all know, and there isn't a board member that doesn't know, that isn't aware that they are categorically unhappy with the way that we play football and the way that they are managed person by person. You know, for instance, Gary mentioned on his video a couple of weeks back when Alex Ferguson, who worked with a big squad, when he had a player that wasn't in a team, he would go and talk to the players individually and say, look, you're not in a team this week, but it is a squad game. You know, we're going for the league. We're trying to win things. You will get game time. You know, keep your chin up. He would manage them. He would kind of put his arm around players. You get none of that from David Moyes. None of it at all. He's kind of got no time for emotional shit. You know, he is as hard-nosed as you would imagine. And that is a bit of a problem as well, because they just think he's a bit of a dick, you know, which we know that he is. And I don't know whether this is a common dynamic in a lot of teams. This is the other thing. I don't know whether you have to be friends with your manager. I don't know whether you have to like them. I don't know whether this is common, but it's not something that I've ever kind of been told about before at West Ham. But then again, I've not really had this type of information before. But it is common. The players are not happy. They're not. They want more. They want to play in a different way, and it's got nothing to do with their love of West Ham. It's got nothing to do with their love of each other as a team. They're a good team. You know, we've built a good group of players, but it just goes back to the fact it isn't just us. It is frustrating, and it wouldn't. Like I said, I managed my son's under-15s team. You know, if I ever went out to set out in a game and started sort of shackling players and saying, no, don't run forward, don't do this, don't do that, you just sit back because of the opposition that we're playing, they'd get so frustrated, they'd get bored. You know, I've spoken to other players that play football at a high level as well, and they say the same thing. Players feel the same as fans. If you're a player with ability and you're good on the ball, you want to be in a situation where you can showcase your talent and enjoy your football. These players like Paqueta, are not going to. Throughout the course of a season, you might get away with it for a few games, but as the season wears on, these players, these high-profile players, are going to get fucked off with it. It's going to drain them. And that's why I think David Moyes was more successful early doors when he first came in, because he didn't have all the superstars. He had a smaller squad of people that he could choose from. He didn't have all these superstars, players that were a lot more grateful and compliant to play in his type of way. But now it's different. With every world-class player that gets added, they've got expectations themselves, you know, and they're not being met. And that's why we're seeing a bit of a revolving door of players that are coming in and going out. Skamaka was in for 2 minutes and then went again. And it isn't because they're always homesick. You've only got to look at the evidence that we've got, you know. I don't think Moyes wanted that player in the first place. I fucking hate these dogs. But look, anyway, I am going to wrap it up because my dogs are barking. I can't stop them. They do my head in. I do apologise. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that anyway. Let me know your thoughts on that moving forwards. And do you think that the board, knowing that there's discontent there, do you think they should have acted already? They should have acted. Or do you think it's normal? Do you think that this type of thing is probably quite normal in a group of players for collectively a massive group of players, both in the team and out of the team, to have a massive issue with the manager and the way that they play football? Yeah, for me, it's just a no-brainer for me to actually sort of get rid of him as quick as possible. But then again, going back to what I said before, it probably wouldn't be the ideal time to bring a new manager in because we've only got 3-day gaps between games coming up, and, you know, it would be a baptism of fire for anyone to walk in at this point. So maybe there is some sense to that as well. I do get it. I'm just so frustrated with it. And like I say, it just feels like an absolute waste. If it goes well throughout December and David Moyes manages to grind out enough results like he did against Burnley, and we don't suffer, we progress in the cups and we maintain our place in the league, then it will be fine. Fine. Because what we want next year, when this new project starts, when the new manager comes in, it would be great if we could have some form of European football. Otherwise, it feels a little bit like you're starting again. Do you know what I mean? So it would be a shame to waste this season, is what I'm saying. And I know that we are where we are because of David Moyes. I do get that. But I've been saying it since day one this season. I've been saying it for a long time. I can see gaps. It isn't just because I dislike Moyes. I can see serious problems with the way that we play football and the way that we set up. And I think there's such a short shelf life to this. We're going to get found out. We're going to get hurt, and I do think that we will slide down the table. I mean, my prediction is that come January, January the 23rd, I think we'll be 13th or 14th, maybe lower. That's what I do truly believe that. The dogs have shut up, so I'll go on a little bit more. The other thing is FFP as well. That's nonsense. We have got money to spend. We've just got no intention of spending it with David Moyes here. That's not to say that we won't bring players in. But if they do come in, they won't be David Moyes players. They'll be players for the next project. But they would have to be, players that would bring us value now as well as later. Otherwise, there's just no point. But they are consolidating. They are basically, they're stockpiling money so that they can go large in the summer, which to me makes perfect sense. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather not completely sacrifice this season. I'd rather go now. Go and get the manager in now. We've got a transfer window around the corner. Just continue this project now. Don't let this one completely burn. But look, it might not. I don't know. It's all ifs, buts, and maybes at the minute. Let me know what your thoughts are anyway. It was a very messy ramble as per usual. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please drop a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. All right. Speak to you soon. Gavin, you heads.